Pre-order the official Fact Hunt book from Unbound.com today! No, seriously. A lot of people say that a console is only as good as its games. While this might be true in retrospective, you could definitely argue that marketing played a much bigger factor at the time of release. However, when you look back at the history of video game consoles, it's pretty much always the console with the best and most expensive marketing that wins out. Shove something in people's faces enough times, making them believe they want it, and your work is done. Just let the cash roll in. But what about those times these companies got so obsessed with their marketing, they stretched the truth further and further until they were marketing utter piffle? So, this episode, we take a look at these marketing mishaps, these quotable quibbles, and these cringe-worthy claims. As I say, but hello you, I'm Guru Larry, and I'll welcome you to Fact Hunt. 5 bullshit claims by console manufacturers. When talking about spurious console claims, the first ones that a lot of people seem to remember are the comments made by former Atari CEO Sam Trammell in his now rather infamous interview with Edge magazine back in March 1995. Now, by this time, it was already known that the Jaguar was starting to struggle in the marketplace, and the situation was getting more desperate by the minute thanks to the soon-to-be launched systems from Sega and Sony. So, how did Atari and its leader react to this stern competition? By spouting a complete load of bollocks to Britain's best-selling games magazine, of course. That was then reprinted by its American sibling, Next Gen, just to make things worse. Among the many ludicrous claims made by Jack's son were the PlayStation and Saturn would retail for over $500. They didn't. Sega had already agreed to release 5 games for the Jaguar as part of a lawsuit, none of which ever arrived. The Saturn was a pooch, its architecture was a mess, and the Jaguar was far more powerful. It wasn't. That if Sony sold the PlayStation at $299, they would sue them for price dumping. They didn't. And that the Jaguar 2 would be released in 1996. Which, we all know the answer to that one, but I could honestly go on and on. Of course, Sam was subsequently ridiculed for these ludicrous comments, and, ironically, doing the poor old Jaguar even more damage in the process. But it's amazing how many times Atari Corporation pop up in these Fact Hunt videos. Hopefully the Trammell family won't start demanding royalties for it. Though, I wouldn't put it past them. Originally codenamed Project Reality, and then known as the Ultra 64 before the final name was settled upon, the Nintendo 64 was based upon groundbreaking silicon graphics supercomputers that were used to create the special effects for big budget Hollywood blockbusters like Terminator 2. To be honest, the Project Reality name was probably enough of a warning to the overinflated claims that would follow, and there'd be plenty more of them too. One of the most interesting things about the time leading up to the Nintendo 64's launch is that, unlike any previous console debut, we all got to see and play the technology for ourselves prior to the opening of our wallets. Or so Nintendo would have us believe, anyway. Through a deal with leading arcade manufacturers Midway, the silicon graphics-based Nintendo 64 technology would be used in several new arcade machines, most notably Cruis'n USA and Killer Instinct. The reception to these was incredibly popular with both press and consumers alike, only whetting the appetite for Nintendo's new console even further. And before long, Executive Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Nintendo of America, Peter Main, was boasting to the press that the Nintendo 64 will offer pixel-perfect conversions of the existing arcade games. Peter's boasts would just become even more grandiose as time went on, with perhaps the biggest fib of them all coming in the claim that the Nintendo 64 will offer a quantum leap not just in technology, but also the quality of its games. He continued to make bold statements about the Nintendo 64 right up until the console finally went on sale, and among his other mistruths were the Nintendo 64 will offer a CD add-on within the first year of its release, and that the N64 would also offer a vast array of new possibilities, including online gaming without the restrictions of previous consoles, despite no previous consoles being online capable. Amazingly, Mayne was never called out for any of these claims by the press. But despite these mistruths, Peter would continue his role with Nintendo right up until 2002 when he announced his retirement. Sorry mate, there's only room for one lying Pete in this industry. When it comes to the biggest failures in console history, the Amstrad GX4000 has to be in with a good shout, and laughable statements like this did it absolutely zero favours. One of the very few consoles to be both designed and manufactured by a British company, the GX4000 was launched in Europe in 1990 to a fair bit of fanfare, and was based upon Amstrad's popular range of CPC computers. Amstrad was owned and run by one Alan Sugar, now Lord Sugar no less, who was on a mission to dominate the UK electronics market. He had seen the success of the ZX Spectrum in his homeland and decided he wanted a piece of the action, and the Amstrad CPC was a result of that. But by the late 80s, the popularity of 8-bit computers was waning, thanks to the arrival of new 16-bit offerings from Atari and Commodore, as well as several more advanced home consoles such as the Sega Master System and the Nintendo NES. So, not one to be left out, Mr. Sugar knew he had to keep up with the times and tasked his engineers to come up with a two-pronged replacement. And they duly delivered with the CPC Plus range of computers to replace their existing 8-bit range. These boasted advanced new features, but retained backwards compatibility to make them more enticing to existing Amstrad owners. They were joined by a home console based on the same hardware. Now, a lot of the specs actually sounded pretty good, especially when compared to its rivals, with 4096 colours, 64K of RAM, 3-channel stereo sound, and 16 sprites per scanline. But the moment its designer Cliff Lawson stated that the GX4000 was at least as good as the SNES, it was impossible to take any of Amstrad's claims seriously. Lawson would later say in an interview with Retro Gamer that the GX4000's only failure was the lack of games available and Amstrad not having the money to compete with Nintendo and Sega. You know, and totally not the fact that Amstrad wanted to charge customers £25 for a year-old game you could buy for $2.99 on cassette. Hey Cliff! But despite being backed by a pretty hefty marketing budget of £20 million, the GX4000 disappeared without a trace in less than a year, selling a miserable 40,000 consoles, with Amstrad ultimately leaving the video game industry altogether. So what we got here is a rare case of Alan Sugar firing himself. Next up is the James Dean of video game consoles, the Sega Dreamcast. The system everyone desperately wanted to succeed, but didn't because people are selfish twats and pirated all the games before buggering off completely to buy a PS2. It's since gathered a rather cult following among retro gamers, and still sees a host of commercial quality games being released for it right up to this very day, proving time after time that the Dreamcast was more powerful than perhaps some people gave the poor thing credit for. Now, it's easy to go back and blame the Sony hype train for ruining the Dreamcast's chances of success, and bear with me because I'll be coming back to that in a bit more detail. But Sony weren't the only ones telling porkies about their console's technical prowess, as the following statements prove. All of the following statements also came from Sega's own marketing and PR department, and were printed in the press at the time. So let's see if you can spot a regular theme now, shall we? June 29th, 1999. The much anticipated 128-bit Sega Dreamcast video game system features an advanced 128-bit graphics engine. July 6, 1999. The Sega Dreamcast features many hardware firsts, such as its advanced built-in 56K modem and 128-bit architecture. August 19th, 1999. Introducing the Sega Dreamcast, the 128-bit super console with built-in 56K modem. Yep, you got it. Sega had convinced themselves that the Dreamcast was 128-bit, when the system was simply only a 32-bit machine. That's not to say they lied about the technology on offer completely though, as the Dreamcast did boast a 128-bit graphics-orientated floating point unit, delivering 1.4 G-flops. Whatever that means. Oh, and the then impressive 56K modem was nerfed to a pathetic 33.3K for the European launch. And us Europeans favoured you over Nintendo, Sega. That's loyalty for you. Okay. All you Sega fanboys can calm down now. The PlayStation 2 is on this list too. Yeah. But this has to be the only console to be featured here where the wild claims had absolutely zero influence on the system's success. Because with sales of over 155 million units, the PS2 still remains the best-selling console of all time. But while the undoubted success of the PlayStation is certainly well known, so are the many mistruths of a certain Mr. Ken Kutaragi, who almost single-handedly drove the PS2 hype train head-on into every single station. The man known to many inside of Sony as Crazy Ken certainly lived up to his moniker on more than one occasion, with fantastical and downright bizarre claims, such as when he was told that the Dreamcast had already launched the next generation, he quipped that the next generation starts when we say so. And who needs a PC when you can have a PS2? A new world will be created on the basis of PlayStation 2. The client right now is the PC, but the PlayStation 2 will be a completely different environment. Then, perhaps best of all, there was the legendary leaked claims that the PS2 was so powerful when compared to a PC that Iraq had imported 4,000 PS2s to launch weapons of mass destruction. It's also rumoured that Ken himself started off such rumours. Rumourception. One of such quotes that definitely didn't come from inside Sony and definitely wasn't leaked accidentally said PlayStation computers could be used to calculate ballistic data for long-range missiles, or in the design of nuclear weapons. Yeah, so you gotta wonder if Iraq was sending back opium in exchange for these consoles. The claims kept coming throughout the PS2's life too, and in the face of the upcoming Xbox, Ken was quoted as saying, "Beating us for a short moment is like accidentally winning a point from a Shihan, karate master, and Microsoft is still not a black belt. Just like with their operating systems. They might come out with something good around the third generation of their release." Ken's mad ramblings didn't end with the PS2 either, as once the PS3 was around the corner, he came out with these gems. "The PS3 is not a game machine. We've never once called it a game machine. With the PS3, our intentions have been to create a machine with supercomputer calculation capabilities for home entertainment. This time, Microsoft has stated clearly that it's going after PlayStation. However, they're not going after the PlayStation 3, but the PlayStation 2. They were looking at 2, and that's why Xbox 360 became like that. If processors of high performance and wide bandwidth like the Cell were linked together without sufficient security, A worldwide system crash could occur with one attack. But saving the best till last, Kutaragi's ultimate bout of nonsense has to be boasting the online capabilities of the PS2. With the PS2, you can communicate to a new cyber city. This will be the ideal home server. Did you see the movie The Matrix? Same interface, same concept. Starting from next year, you could jack into the Matrix. Did you even watch that movie, Ken? But never change, Kenny. Never change. Hello, you. You're invited to join me at my new digital fan club on Popbase. On the Popbase app, you can play with exclusive content I created, compete for awards, and win collectibles and an experience hosted by Digital Me. Our creator community grows fast with daily content drops to keep you busy. You can download the app on the app stores or by clicking on the links below on your mobile device. So, what are you waiting for? See you on Popbase, peoples! Hello, you. Thanks ever so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to be first to see future Fact Hunt episodes. Click on the bell if you already are to make sure you're notified, and be sure to check out my other episodes. And if you want to be super awesome, check out my Patreon. But thanks again for watching, and I'll be seeing you next time. Ta-ra for now.